Welcome to 100 Yards of Football this morning. Today, we're going to talk about a special organization that had a great run in the 80s. The San Francisco 49ers from 1981 to 1995 History Special. If you like the video today, please comment and share it. I'm your host, Vincent Turner. And boy, when I talk about an organization that set the 80s on fire, the San Francisco 49ers. When I think about the 49ers, I think about West Coast in the house. And boy, they were special. I'm going to start with 1981 when it got started. And I knew the 49ers had a chance to be very good over the era of the 80s, starting on this day, October 11th, 1981. Yours truly was a senior getting ready to graduate from the University of Arkansas. I was in my final 2 semesters. And like every Sunday, me and my guys who I love to death and I always remember all the great memories, we had a ritual on Sunday. And we always watched the national game of the week on CBS. And then on that lovely October 11th day, 1981, it was the San Francisco 49ers taking on the Dallas Cowboys. And Dallas was high-powered that year. You know, Danny White, Tony Dorsett. Secondary was starting 2 rookies, Everson Walls, Michael Downs, Dennis Thurman, Ed Too Tall Jones. Clearly, Dallas was the team of the league that year. But this San Francisco 49ers team was upstarted. And they had this coach named Bill Walsh that came over from Stanford. But a lot of people don't know really how he got his bones in the game. He was the offensive coordinator over there in Cincinnati under allegedly the greatest coach ever in pro football, in Paul Brown. He finally brought it back to the West Coast, and in 1981 on that lovely October 11th day, with me watching the game with my friends, Vic Moss out of Magnolia, Arkansas, Riley James out of Osceola, Arkansas. Man, it was special. And we was watching the game, had the Bush. Yes, sir, we was rocking the 6-pack, had that pizza from Pizza Hut. And we just know Dallas was going to run roughshod over this young football team in 1981. But what I didn't know watching that game was how good this football team was, and it was simply because of the quarterback. And I think today, while I give this special, I think we talk about Tom Brady as of the present, as the GOAT. No question about it, Mr. Brady's won 7 Super Bowls. But this guy here, Joe Montana, I wouldn't have no problem if everybody still considered him as the GOAT. He was special, man. And he was special. And the reason I came really in tune to the football game, I remember this guy when he won the national championship in 1977. When they beat a Texas Longhorns team that had the great Earl Campbell. That's when he came on the map. Then the following year, his last year, going back to the Cotton Bowl, down 34-12 to the University of Houston, they had Danny Davis, Grady Turner. Came back and beat that Houston team, the Houston Cougar team, 35-34, down 34-12 in the fourth quarter. Winded to now his 3rd year in the league. And that day, they put the Dallas Cowboys on fire, 45-14. And they introduced the West Coast offense. But what was so special about that day, it was their defense that I really, really fell in love with. And it was the secondary. Starting 3 rookies. And one of them was the most explosive football player that ever came into the league at the cornerback position. And I hope one day I get to meet him. His name is Mr. Ronnie Lotta out of San Bernardino, California. And he had a 41 interception return in that game as Frisco beat Dallas that day 45-14. And I said, you know what? If Dallas gets to the NFC Championship game, they got a good chance of meeting these guys again to go to the Super Bowl. And you know what? That happened. Let's go to the game. Back watching it down in Grayson Hall. It's in January now. I'm getting ready to graduate my last semester. But boy, it was rocking. A lot of Cowboy fans were in the house that day at Grayson Hall at the University of Arkansas up there in the mountains. of Fayetteville. And we cheering the Cowboys on. But that 49ers team got that ball with about 3.5 minutes and went 83 yards down to the 6-yard line. And that Cowboy defense digged in. And what I understood is that Joe Montana called that thing sprint right. Rolled out, threw the ball in the air, and we just knew it was going to be picked by Everson Walls. Go look at the Sports Illustrated cover. And out of the blue came this young man out of Clemson University. He's went to heaven right now. He was one of the best underrated receivers in the game, Dwight Clark. And he snatched it out of the air. And the dynasty was built. It was built. The West Coast offense was in the house. Jefferson Starship. Sly and the Family Stone. Too Short. Michael Cooper and Confunction. All eyes went out there on the West Coast over there in San Francisco and Oakland. And boy, the 49ers, they set it off. And they set it off because they had a young man who was a special player. Joe Montana, being a quarterback of this great dynasty, went a 4-0 in Super Bowls. 11 touchdowns and no interceptions in Super Bowl play. A 127 QB rating in Super Bowl competition. And right now he holds the record 122 pass attempts in Super Bowls with no interceptions. Talk about the team. Let's talk about the team from 1981 to 1995. 159 wins, 56 losses, and 1 tie. 19-7 in the postseason. 11 NFC West titles. Qualified for the playoffs 12 times. And during that time, all the great players that played with that organization. Jerry Rice, the Delta Devil. Oh my God. 1,549 receptions, 22,895 yards, 197 touchdowns. Roger Craig, Nebraska finest. The first player in 85 to go over 1,000 yards, rushing and receiving. A true warrior. Warriors come out to play. And it's a shame he's not in the Hall of Fame. Then other players, Jack Hacksaw Reynolds, Keenan Turner. Oh my God, Eric Reich out of the University of Missouri. Jesus, Charles the Tree Young out of USC. Randy Cross out of UCLA. Steve Wallace out of Auburn. The list goes on and on. Kenny Norton Jr. Man, Florida State Pipeline, Dexter Carter, William Floyd, Deion Sanders. This was a special organization. Then when Joe Montana stepped down, the young man out of BYU kicked the machine going, Steve Young. That 1995 Super Bowl. Had the highest QB rating, 4 touchdowns, close to over 400 yards passing. Then we go back to the back-to-back Super Bowls in 1990 and 1989 when the great Joe Montana led them on the last winning drive in Miami. Then come back the next year in New Orleans and they blew out the Denver Broncos 55-10. It's so many great players. Don Griffin, let me throw him in there for Middle Tennessee State. This organization was special. And during the 80s, the San Francisco 49ers was must-see TV. But there's one thing that stuck out of my mind, that the 81 team set the tone for all these great players. And Eddie DiBartolo was a great GM. But when you look at that 81 team, and that team that beat the Dallas Cowboys and went on to beat a very good Cincinnati Bengals team in the Super Bowl in 1982, this team had some very unsung heroes that set the tone for this organization to start what I call the West Coast. That offense that brought everybody. And I want to give kudos to the players on that 81 team that really got it started. Paul Hofer out of University of Ole Miss 901. The late great Freddie Solomon, Tampa Bay University. The great Johnny Davis out of University of Alabama. Lawrence Pillars out of Alcorn State. Dwight Clark, Clemson finest. Famous Amos Lawrence out of North Carolina. And the great Ricky Patton out of Jackson State. That 81 team set it off, and the young man that set it off, Joe Montana. And when you look at the league today, there's one thing that you're not ever going to be able to do. You're not going to ever be able to have organizations like this, teams like this, unless you got a quarterback that can play at a high level. Like I said just a few seconds ago, I know Tom Brady is the GOAT. And right now he deservedly so because he got 7 rings. But it's going to be hard for me. I'll probably give a slight edge to the young man from Western Pennsylvania, looking like Barry Manilow, a guy that set it on fire, a guy that went in the Super Bowl 92 against Ken Anderson and everybody was on Ken Anderson's jock, a guy that went into that 1984 Super Bowl. Everybody was in love with that Italian stallion, Dan Marino, under the center for the Miami Dolphins. But you saw what Joe Montana did, 38-16, baby. Man, that guy was a special football player coming out of Notre Dame. And he set it off with one of the most innovative coaches in Bill Walsh. And they had the greatest receiver pound for pound to play the game in Jerry Rice. And that slant pattern that they used to run with that West Coast was outstanding. So many great players with this organization. Don't let me leave other people out. Ricky Waters, Ricky Jackson, Brian Young, Eric Davis. I'm sorry, I apologize. Roger Craig, I'm going to say it one more time. He should be in the Hall of Fame. It's a tragedy. I'm lobbying for the young man out of Davenport, Iowa. I'm a diehard Dallas Cowboys fan. And I'm going to be a fan. That team is going to be my heart till the day I die. But as I do this preview today on this very special organization, much love, much respect. They had it going on out there at the West Coast. Let me throw MC Hammer out there too. So, if you like the video today, please come in and share it. And when I think about the San Francisco 49ers from 1981 to 1985, it's a young man from Oakland, California. He says it very sweet and very shortly and very to the point. I go on and on. I can't understand I last so long. I must have superpowers. Blow the whistle, as Mr. Too Short says. The San Francisco 49ers was blowing that whistle from 1981 to 1995. If you like the video today, please come in and share it. I'm your host, Vincent Turner, from the 901, my hometown, Memphis, Tennessee. Y'all have a blessed week. Too Short. The San Francisco 49ers, blow that whistle.